Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian, Pace reporting live here at Smoke here in Harlem, New York. Saxophonist Chris Potter tonight is breaking away from his underground unit and playing with his trio, which features Mr. Adam Cruz on drums as well as John Patitucci on bass. Tonight we're going to sit down and break down why he decided to put together this trio unit. And throughout his last 20 years, he's accompanied and played with some of the heavyweights in jazz, from Marian McPartland to Red Rodney to the late Paul Motian. And he still continues to play with the legendary bassist Dave Holland. We're going to sit down and talk about his origins growing up in South Carolina, what jazz means to him, and how he's made an impact in jazz music over the last 20 years. Congratulations on this trio. This is the first time you played with Adam and John, and you're taking a break from your underground quartet.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a certain sort of resonance that the saxophone gets playing with other acoustic instruments that I was starting to miss, and also, this is kind of an informal situation where we're doing some standards, we're doing some older music of mine. So it's kind of a way of relaxing and kind of recharging my batteries, figuring out where to go next. But I'm having a ball working with these guys, so hopefully I have a chance to do it again.
This is kind of like the sneak preview for your upcoming CD that you're about to release on ECM.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that's all original music, new original music. It's kind of a different vibe, but it is an acoustic setting. The record is, it's with Eric Harland on drums, Larry Grenadier on bass. It's with Craig Taborn on piano. David Varelis is playing second piano on a few tunes, like harmonium, celeste, prepared piano. We put some stuff in the piano, so it's a little more, maybe more kind of atmospheric than what we're doing tonight. But there's some kind of straight ahead swinging in there too. So.
begin in South Carolina, and you were very proficient as a saxophonist by the time you were about 16, 17 years old. Who were some of your influences?
Well, the first real group of influences were the guys from the Ellington bands, because I just started listening to Ellington records over and over again. So Johnny Hodges and Ben Webster and Gonzalez and Harry Carney, those are some of my earliest ones. And then after that, I went in like a real big Bird phase. I was only playing alto at that point too. So. As far as earliest influences, those would be the ones, and then of course Sonny and Train and Lester Young and everybody. There's been so many amazing voices on the saxophone in the history of this music that have inspired me. Yeah.
There's a very important lady that's very important to your life, Miss Marian McPartland, who helped you out tremendously. Mm-hmm. She also recommended that you play with Red Rodney. How was that?
Well, that was actually a different situation. I think she was going to recommend me to Woody Herman or something like that. Red Rodney, I actually met in Columbia, South Carolina. He came down there to do a jazz festival when I was 17, 18, right before moving to New York. And they set it up so we could play together. I played a few sets with him. And he said to give him a call when I would come to New York. So I did. I came to New York later in the year, and I started working with his band. So that was a great experience to have a chance to work with one of the real be-boppers, when I was 18, and get a real taste of that, Great.
When you came to New York and you studied, what was it that made you decide to play the alto, not the alto, the tenor and the soprano?
I started feeling like the tenor felt like more of a voice to me, more of a challenge in a certain way. Whenever I played the alto, I could just kind of imagine Bird, that's what I heard. So, as strong an influence, as Coltrane is and Sonny, for some reason I felt a little more flexible on the tenor, that I could find something of my own. And there's also a certain thing, once you extend the range and you can get into the altissimo, you have basically the same range as an alto, but then you can go lower, and the sound is a little bit thicker. And it felt like a voice, but it felt like something that I needed to really work on, because I was definitely a better alto player than a tenor player when I moved to New York. So it was a project to really consciously develop a voice on that instrument.
Chris, I've known you for a couple of years now, and every time I see you, you're just a very laid-back, very mild guy. But when you get on that bandstand, fire comes out of that saxophone or saxophones. What is it that you're communicating on those instruments?
Well, if I could really express it well in words, maybe I wouldn't need to play it. But there's all sorts of things. There's so many, things that music touches in all of us that's beyond my understanding, beyond anyone's understanding, maybe, But, so many different energies, so many different kind of colors and subtle emotional states of mind, that music can bring. And just a force, just a life force. I think that's the main thing that I end up getting for my heroes, When I listen to Bird, of course, when I was trying to figure out how to do that, you have to study it, you have to break it down into pieces and figure out what he's doing and why. But at the end of the day, when I listen to it, I still just hear spirit, and a spirit that transcends the saxophone or music or anything, just something human and universal that, moves me. So for me, it's all about trying to find that place in myself, and so maybe I can give what I have to give, whatever that is.
The last decade, you've had a real good run with your underground unit, and is that something that you're going to continue to do? And what is it about the musicians in the underground that keeps this going?
Oh, well, yeah. I think there's a lot more ground for us to cover, I've been, sort of on a slight break from it, but I definitely want it to keep going because I think there are more areas that we can explore. It's a thing, it's like we've been trying to figure out a way to play kind of in a more funk context, but extremely open, like as open as any of the jazz groups that we listen to are, I don't know. This is another situation where if I knew how to express it in words, maybe I wouldn't have to play it. But there's just a sound in my head that I could imagine, and the underground group was a way to try and get that out. The thing with the way the Rhodes blends with the guitar and the drums, and the way that those guys play, because no one else plays the bass from the Rhodes. That's kind of a job that Taborn invented for himself, whether he likes it or not. And it's so funky, the way he gets into that stuff with Nate, and Nate has such a strong, warm pocket, and then Adam's textural things and his versatility, there's just a million different ways that it can go, and it felt like a way to explore a different aspect of my personality.
We just lost an icon in jazz music, the late Paul Motian, and you played with him for many years.
Yeah.
And what was it that he brought to your musicianship? What were some of the things you learned from him, and what are some of the things that you're gonna miss about him?
Well, I'm gonna miss playing with him. I'm gonna miss talking with him. He was a beautiful person and very unique and very strong person. Went his own way, and that was a big lesson, I think. I remember from the very first time I played with him, I realized that for us to really communicate musically, I had to be very strong with my own personality. I couldn't try and please him. That didn't work at all. You had to really be yourself and assert yourself, and even make some mistakes. That was okay. You know, he was all right with that, as long as it was yours, as long as it was your mistakes. You know, and hopefully, you know, you learn that it's a mistake, and you keep going. I mean, I started playing with him when I was maybe 20, 22, something like that. So I was, you know, fairly green in some ways, and he was very, very generous to me. It wasn't something that we ever talked about, or that I ever really heard him talk about with anyone. It was just clear from his relationship with music and his relationship with other people. You know, it was all about, you know, he had a great faith in his instincts. You know, he had an aesthetic sense. There wasn't a way to break down a lot of the stuff he was doing and analyze it into its parts. It was just what he heard, you know, because he evolved this thing. You remember seeing him, you know, almost looked like a little kid, you know, like bam, 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 bah, you know, and that's where it was coming from. Like, he wanted to reduce it to the things that were really essential and get rid of the things that are extraneous, you know, and not important in the.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at Smoke here in Harlem. I'd like to personally thank Chris Potter for his time, as well as the staff and management here at Smoke. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.